The first explosion rocked the UHS Dauntless, sending tremors through the bridge. Captain Elias Carter gripped the armrest of his command chair as red warning lights bathed the room in an eerie glow. His crew moved with precision, hands flying across control panels, their voices sharp and urgent. "Shields down to 60%, Lieutenant Avery called out, her tone clipped but controlled. Enemy warships closing fast. Carter exhaled slowly, keeping his focus on the forward view screen. Beyond the reinforced glass, the black void of space had transformed into a battlefield. Enemy vessels, sleek, jagged, and pulsing with an ominous blue glow, swarmed around the Dauntless like wolves circling prey. The KRYL, an unknown but clearly hostile force, had ambushed the fleet on the far edge of the Lacale system, and humanity had been caught off guard. "Return fire," Carter ordered. "Target their engines, cripple them if you can." The deck rumbled as the Dauntless unleashed a volley of plasma rounds, streaks of white-hot energy slamming into the lead KRYL ship. The enemy craft convulsed before detonating in a silent explosion, debris scattering into the void. For a brief second, Carter allowed himself the satisfaction of a kill. Then the distress signal came. A shrill, desperate transmission cut through the ship's communication channels, overriding all non-essential systems. A voice, warbled, alien, and full of fear, spoke in heavily accented standard. "Human vessel, please help. We cannot hold, they are." The transmission crackled, the speaker's voice swallowed by static before returning. "We are Velari. We beg assistance." Carter frowned. He had never heard of the Velari before, but that hardly mattered now. He turned toward Commander Rajani Patel, his second in command. "Can we trace it?" She nodded, fingers dancing over her console. "Source is a convoy about 80,000 kilometers from our position. And sir, they're running fast." Carter narrowed his eyes at the display. The tactical interface showed a group of ships, smaller than the Dauntless, heavily damaged, and barely keeping ahead of the KRYL pursuers. The KRYL weren't just attacking humanity. They were hunting something else. His fingers tapped against the armrest. The fleet was already in bad shape. This ambush had taken a toll, and he had no idea how long before reinforcements arrived. They couldn't afford unnecessary risks. But that voice, "Captain," Patel pressed, her voice hushed. "They won't last another 5 minutes." Carter made his decision. "All ahead full," he said. "Put us between them and the KRYL." Avery hesitated. "Sir, that's an order, Lieutenant." The Dauntless surged forward, engines roaring as it cut through the battlefield. The KRYL must have noticed. Their formation shifted, some breaking off to intercept. Plasma beams lanced toward them, but Carter's crew was ready. "Evasive maneuvers," Patel called. The ship tilted, rolling hard to avoid the worst of the barrage. The shields flared under the impact, but the hull held. "Open fire." The Dauntless struck back, turrets locking onto the enemy with precision. One KRYL ship shattered under a direct hit to its core reactor. Another spiraled out of control as its thrusters were obliterated. But still, they kept coming. Through it all, Carter kept his eyes on the Velari convoy. They had slowed slightly, likely realizing what the Dauntless was trying to do. The comms crackled again. "Human vessel, do you intend to defend us?" Carter didn't hesitate. "Damn right we do." Silence. Then, "We will not forget this." The battle pressed on, and for a moment, it seemed like humanity might turn the tide. Then, the mothership appeared. A shadow fell over the battlefield as the largest KRYL vessel yet emerged from hyperspace. A jagged monolith of organic metal plating, its form pulsed with a sickly blue glow. It was a harbinger of death, and it had just arrived. "Sir," Patel breathed, "that thing is bigger than anything we've seen." The ship's AI, Vox, chimed in, its synthetic voice unervingly calm. "Tactical analysis suggests survival probability has dropped by an unfortunate margin." Carter gritted his teeth. "Figures." The KRYL mothership wasted no time. It unleashed a gravity pulse, sending shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. The Dauntless shuddered violently, alarms screaming as systems overloaded. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. "Hull breach on deck 5. Avery shouted. Carter clenched his jaw. The Velari convoy was still in danger. He had no choice. "Prepare for emergency warp," he ordered. Patel's head snapped toward him. "We can't just leave." "I know." His voice was hard. "We're taking them with us." A brief pause. Then Patel nodded, eyes flashing with understanding. "Avery, calculate a jump to Earth," Carter said. "Tell the Velari to stick close. If they can keep up, we'll get them out of here." The ship groaned under another barrage, but the engines were still functional. The Velari, desperate, moved into formation, clinging to the Dauntless like a lifeline. "Warp in 3-2. The KRYL mothership powered its weapons for a final, devastating blow. 1. The stars stretched into infinity. Then they were gone. Carter exhaled, sinking back into his chair as the Dauntless reemerged in the cold void of soul space. Earth loomed in the distance, a shining blue gem. They had made it. Behind them, the Velari convoy emerged, battered but alive. The bridge was silent except for the heavy breathing of the crew. Then the comms crackled again. "We owe you everything." The Velari's voice was thick with emotion. We thought no one would come." Carter let out a slow breath. "Well," he muttered, rubbing a hand over his face. "Guess you caught us on a good day." Vox hummed. "If this was a good day, Captain, I strongly recommend you never experience a bad one." Patel snorted. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the bridge, a brief but welcome break from the tension. But Carter's mind was elsewhere. He stared at the tactical display, at the empty void where the KRYL had been. They had escaped, but he knew, with absolute certainty, that the KRYL wouldn't stop. Not until they finished what they started. And now, they knew exactly where Earth was. The War Council chamber aboard UHS High Command was built for efficiency, not comfort. It was a sterile, angular room, illuminated by cold, overhead lights that cast sharp shadows against the walls. The air hummed with quiet tension, a pressure that had settled over the gathered officials like an unshakable weight. Captain Elias Carter sat at the long table, resisting the urge to rub the exhaustion from his eyes. Across from him, a panel of admirals and politicians, their faces carefully measured, studied the holographic projection of Earth's orbit. Dozens of red markers littered the display, simulations of potential KRYL invasion routes. Sales, the Velari ambassador, sat stiffly beside Carter. His elongated fingers rested on the metal tabletop, his dark eyes flicking between the human officials. He had barely spoken since arriving on Earth, but Carter could see it, the quiet despair that lingered in the way he held himself, like a man waiting for a verdict he already knew would be death. Admiral Hawthorne cleared his throat. His voice, even in practice, cut through the tense silence. "Captain Carter, your report states that the KRYL engage your fleet without provocation. You further claim that the Velari have been targeted for systematic eradication." "That's not a claim, Admiral." Carter's voice was sharp. "It's a fact." The Admiral regarded him with a steady gaze. "And yet we have no historical records of the Velari or their conflict with the KRYL. No diplomatic contact, no references in deep space archives. For all intents and purposes, this war began yesterday." Sales finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "Not for us." The room fell into silence. The alien's fingers curled slightly. "We were an empire once. Vast. Proud. We thought ourselves invincible. Then the KRYL came." He exhaled, as if the words themselves carried weight. "They do not conquer. They consume. They are machine intelligence, evolving with every war they fight. Each species that falls to them becomes part of them. Our fleets were mighty. It did not matter. Our defenses were strong. It did not matter. Nothing mattered. Until now, we did not believe anyone could stand against them." His gaze settled on Carter. "But you fought them, and you lived." A murmur spread through the chamber. Carter took the moment to press forward. "Admiral," he said, leaning forward, I get the hesitation. I really do. But let me put this plainly. If we do nothing, the KRYL will come for us next. They don't negotiate. They don't want territory. They devour civilizations and leave nothing but ruins behind. Hawthorne's expression remained unreadable. We don't even know what they want from the Velari. Sally's let out something between a bitter laugh and a sigh. We do. He gestured toward the display, where the projection of the KRYL mothership still loomed. Once, long ago, our scientists discovered something buried beneath the surface of a dead world. We called it the core shard, a fragment of something ancient, something that predated us by millennia. Carter felt a chill crawl up his spine, and the KRYL want it. They want to become it. Sally's voice was flat. The core shard is a relic of a long-dead intelligence. The KRYL seek to assimilate it, to evolve beyond their current form. If they succeed, they will be unstoppable. The silence that followed was suffocating. Hawthorne steepled his fingers, considering. Then, finally, and where is this shard now? Sally's hesitated. We do not know, but the KRYL do, and wherever it is, they're going there. The weight of the revelation settled over the council. Carter could see the battle behind the Admiral's eyes, the instinct to protect Earth warring with the knowledge that doing nothing would doom them all. It was Secretary Harlan, one of the few government officials in the room, who finally spoke. So let's assume the captain is right, that the KRYL will come for us next. What's our best defense? Carter tapped the table. We don't wait. We hit them first. Hawthorne frowned. You're suggesting a preemptive strike? I'm suggesting a war strategy. He gestured to the projection. We know the KRYL fight with overwhelming force, but they lack flexibility. They don't expect species to fight back, not effectively. That's why they hesitated at Lakale. They weren't prepared for us. Avery, standing by the wall, chimed in. If we move now, we can coordinate with the Velari survivors. We learn everything they know about the KRYL, and we prepare for the counterattack. Harlan sighed. And if we lose? Carter met his gaze. Then we die fighting instead of waiting to be slaughtered. No one spoke for a long moment. Then, slowly, Hawthorne nodded. Then we prepare for war. The weeks that followed passed in a relentless blur. Earth's shipyards moved at breakneck speed, churning out new vessels with every available resource. Tactical teams pored over Velari battle records, dissecting the KRYL's weaknesses, what few there were. The Dauntless underwent full repairs, and Carter's crew trained alongside the surviving Velari, bridging the gap between two species that, weeks ago, hadn't even known the other existed. Sally's became a permanent fixture aboard the Dauntless, advising on strategy with a quiet, resigned patience. Carter had come to respect him. The Velari had lost everything, yet Sally's never let his grief consume him. Perhaps, Carter thought, because he didn't have time to grieve. They worked, they planned, and then the KRYL arrived. It began with Saturn's outer colonies. The KRYL didn't waste time with formalities. They came in force, descending upon the settlements with cold efficiency. Millions of lives were lost in hours. The response fleet barely managed to hold the line at Titan, but the damage was done. Earth had been marked. Carter stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, staring at the tactical map as fresh reports poured in. The KRYL weren't slowing down. They were testing them, probing defenses before the full assault. He turned to Patel. How long until they hit Mars? 2 days. Maybe less. Not enough time. A message flashed across the comms, an encoded transmission from Hawthorne. Carter opened it, reading the single line of text. Initiate Phase 2. Carter let out a slow breath. Get the fleet ready. Avery turned. Where are we going? To the source. He met Sally's gaze. We're going to stop this before it reaches Earth. The Velari's expression remained unreadable. Then, softly, he said, I hope you are prepared for what you will find. Carter wasn't. But that didn't matter now. They were out of time. The fleet emerged from hyperspace into the heart of a graveyard. Derelict ships, broken and lifeless, drifted in the void. Some were Velari. Others were from civilizations Carter didn't recognize. Jagged remnants of war, silent testaments to those who had tried and failed. The dauntless floodlights swept across twisted hulls, revealing battle scars centuries old. Whatever had happened here, it had not been a battle. It had been an execution. Beyond the wreckage, bathed in the dim glow of a dying star, loomed the KRYL construct. It was unlike anything they had encountered. A station, vast and angular, pulsing with an eerie blue luminescence. At its core, a single monolithic structure floated, suspended by energy fields. The core shard. Saley stood rigid beside Carter, his elongated fingers tightening at his sides. There it is. His voice was barely above a whisper. Patel, watching the scanners, exhaled sharply. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy readings. That thing isn't just a relic. It's active. Carter's gut twisted. Then we don't have time to waste. Avery turned from her console. Sir, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we've got incoming. The KRYL defenses activated. From the darkness, they came, warships slithering from the wreckage, like predators lying in wait. The dauntless sensors screamed warnings as the enemy vessels converged, dozens of them, their organic plating shifting in response to the incoming threat. The trap had been sprung. Carter didn't flinch. All ships, engage at will. The void erupted. The battle unfolded in flashes of blinding energy. The Dauntless weaved through the onslaught, its railguns spitting fire, its plasma turrets lashing out in controlled bursts. Velari's ships, sleek and agile, flanked their human allies, moving with deadly precision. But the KRYL had numbers. Endless numbers. A massive enemy dreadnought surged forward, its weapons cycling up for a devastating blast. Patel barked, "Brace!" The KRYL fired. The Dauntless lurched violently as its shields overloaded, the impact sending tremors through the hull. Sparks rained from overhead conduits, and the ship's AI, Vox, crackled to life, sustaining critical damage. This is suboptimal. You think? Carter snarled. Through the chaos, Sales's voice cut in. We must reach the core shard. That is their priority. Carter's mind raced. He turned to Patel. Give me a strike team. We're boarding that station. Avery's head snapped toward him. Sir, that's a suicide run. Carter gave a grim smile. Then let's make it worth something. Minutes later, Carter stood in the Dauntless launch bay, fully armed and suited, alongside a dozen of his best soldiers. Patel was already in the pilot's seat of the dropship, her fingers flying over the controls. Saley stepped up beside Carter, his dark eyes unreadable. I am coming with you. Carter hesitated. Then he nodded. Then let's finish this. The dropship rocketed forward, weaving through the battlefield as debris and enemy fire streaked past. The station loomed closer, its pulsing core almost hypnotic. Then the defenses came online. Automated turrets erupted from the station's surface, unleashing a storm of energy rounds. The dropship shuddered violently as Patel fought for control. We're not going to make it, one of the Marines shouted. Carter clenched his jaw. We'll make it. The station's docking bay yawned ahead, a final opening. Patel gritted her teeth, yanking the controls hard. The dropship barreled through, narrowly avoiding a catastrophic collision, before skidding to a halt inside the cavernous docking chamber. Carter didn't wait. Move! The strike team deployed, weapons raised as KRYL drones swarmed toward them. Plasma fire ripped through the air as the Marines held the line, their shots tearing into the biomechanical horrors. The air filled with the stench of burning metal and something worse, something alive. Saley's was at Carter's side, moving with an unnatural grace, his own weapon cutting through the enemy ranks with practiced efficiency. They pressed forward, deeper into the station, toward the pulsing core that thrummed with an ominous energy. Then the walls shifted. A form emerged, tall, monstrous, its chitinous plating gleaming under the dim lights. The KRYL overmined. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. Carter could feel it. Asterisk, asterisk, a presence pushing into his mind, asterisk, asterisk, vast and incomprehensible. The KRYL weren't just a species. They were a single entity, and this was its voice. Saley staggered, gripping his head. No, it's inside my thoughts. Carter fought the urge to gasp for breath as a wave of images crashed over him. Asterisk, asterisk, worlds consumed, civilizations erased, endless hunger, asterisk, asterisk. The KRYL had no emotion, no malice. It simply was, and it was unstoppable. No. Carter gritted his teeth, forcing the alien intrusion out of his mind. We end this. Now. Patel's voice crackled through his comm. Captain, you need to move. The fleet can't hold much longer. There was no time. Carter charged forward, gun blazing, unloading round after round into the Overmind's shifting form. Sally's followed, his movements precise, relentless. The creature recoiled, its shriek reverberating through the station. Carter lunged, slamming a detonator onto the control panel beside the core shard. He turned, locking eyes with Sally's. Time to go. The Velari nodded. The station trembled. Energy surged through the walls, the core shard pulsing erratically as the detonation sequence began. Carter activated his comm. Patel, we need extraction now. The reply was instant. Already on it. They ran. The station began to collapse, walls fracturing as the core's energy turned volatile. The strike team barely made it to the docking bay before Patel's dropship swooped in, side doors open. Carter grabbed Sally's and leapt aboard as the station began to detonate. The dropship tore away, rocketing out of the collapsing structure just as the core shard imploded, a final, deafening explosion erasing the construct from existence. The battlefield outside had changed. The KRYL ships, once relentless, were scattering, their formation breaking apart. Carter watched in disbelief as the entire fleet recoiled, ships convulsing as if in agony. Sally's exhaled, watching the destruction unfold. We sever the head. Avery's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, they're retreating. Carter sat back, the weight of the battle finally settling over him. It was over. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to breathe. The Dauntless loomed ahead, waiting. As the dropship docked, the remaining fleet regrouped. Cheers erupted over the comm channels, human and Velari voices mixing in shared victory. Carter stood, glancing at Sally's. You still think no one could stand against them? Sally's gave a small, weary smile. I was wrong. Carter turned to the stars, watching as the last remnants of the KRYL vanished into the void. They would return one day, but when they did, humanity would be ready.